Vous allez peut-être mieux m'entendre à cette heure que le micro est allumé.
Maybe you can hear me better now that the microphone is on. So good evening, everyone. This is the third meeting this month, and it's always an information meeting at this point for various organizations to come and present. Today, we're quite lucky because it's time to start talking a little more and confirm the rumor that apparently an election is going to be happening this fall. So this is going to give us an opportunity to get to know the candidates who want to represent us, and also to deal with some files which are very specific not only to the city of Dieppe, but generally speaking, important to all communities throughout the province of New Brunswick. So when the time is right, you don't hear me? Let me move this over to the side for a moment.
Merci.
Thank you. There we go. I won't start over again for those who are not here, but basically we're going to get to better know those who want to represent us, and we'll be discussing items of interest for the community, be it related to growth, be it money which comes back to communities, and the whole debate, of course, as it relates to the rates which are another factor, the rates that people pay per $100 of assessment. So when the time is appropriate at the beginning of every year, when we send money off to the province to pay for all the services we receive, well, during the last few years, but more particularly, it's become a burden for many citizens, the increase as such for in assessments that were done by the province of New Brunswick in general. So having said this, so in order to be fair and equal, we'll do a draw. So good evening. So we had two confirmations from the parties who will be here. So the Green Party and the Liberal Party are the two parties that have confirmed their presence, and they were invited to make a presentation on municipal issues throughout the province. So we're going to draw, and the people in the room will give their confidence to the mayor to do the draw. So there are two names in here. And let me make sure that they're easy for you to draw from. I've got one in my hand. So it's the color red. So, Your Worship, because the parties were asked to send one spokesperson, so the Liberal Party has invited Natasha Vautour, who is the speaker this evening. So you will have 15 minutes to deal with the 4 municipal priorities in New Brunswick, and then members of council are invited to ask questions as you wish to with regard to these priorities. So that's the way we had suggested. And yes, they received a document previously that was prepared by the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick. And the invitation letter was also very clear about how the evening was going to proceed. So Natasha Vautour is at the podium. Welcome, Madame Vautour. Welcome to the mic. And as you know, the first item is a new partnership, a strong partnership that we're hearing talk about and that we would like to have, and with regard to more cooperation. It's a word I don't know here. I've never seen this word before.
Plus pertinent. Excusez-moi. Plus
Pertinent, more pertinent, more relevant. Took me a minute to get that word out. So a more a pertinent or relevant partnership, a strong partnership with your level of government. Our interest is very regional for us here, and it applies to all provincial communities. You want us to do one point at a time? Well, you have 15 minutes. Okay, great. That's what I'd understood. Good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to speak to you this evening. It's the first chance I've had to do this in this beautiful city, which incarnates a great balance between inclusion. I'm the Liberal candidate for Dieppe Memramcourt, but on behalf of our part and on behalf of my colleague, Mr. Robert Gauvin, for Dieppe and Beige-Chériac, who's with us, we cooperated on what we were going to share with you this evening. So you have an opportunity to hear. Mrs. Holt's team wishes to cooperate with the communities in order to support you and correctly support you. What's important for us is to really change how politics is done. It's essential to work as a team within our government while we support on a diverse team, working directly with communities in order to answer their needs, to answer your needs, in fact. So in summary, what we are prioritizing is an approach directed by the community, but supported by the provincial government. So this is how we hope to be able to move forward. Dieppe is not only the biggest Francophone city in New-Brunswick, it's a model of diversity and inclusion. You have been able to promote and preserve our culture while welcoming an ever-increasing population. This growth has been impressive over the last few years. It's a source of pride for all the province. What sets you apart and makes you the envy of other municipalities in our province. This is why it's important to work together so we can offer what's best for all of the community. This project, which is a challenge that we have to take up together. Dieppe's rapid growth with its new businesses and new families means that there are many new responsibilities, developing infrastructure, public security, social support, so many complex questions that you have to manage. Clearly, these responsibilities are managed better with support, be it as it may. That's why we're here today to confirm our undertaking to improve collaboration between the province and municipalities. Dieppe needs specific help and very different from other communities, provincially speaking, to manage its expansion and ensure that all its citizens, those who were here before and the new ones, have an exceptional quality of life. We have already done the first step in municipal reform, but we must go further. The provincial government is ready to work hand in hand with you to guarantee that the resources and the necessary flexibility will allow you to deal with your unique challenges. We will answer the needs of the current population, but anticipate the needs of upcoming generations. Dealing with such a growth as you have known, it's essential to have a stable fiscal framework and a foreseeable one. This allows you to better plan the future without fearing unknown fluctuations. Since the reform of municipalities was done by the current government, we still have no answers to many of our questions. Why wait after an election to conclude this important work? And even more, why have you begun this work without even talking about taxation? As I was a teacher for the past 15 years, I would say that this is incomplete work. The Liberals will firmly undertake fair and transparent fiscal reform. The new system that we will cooperate with you on will provide Dieppe with the means to continue to invest in infrastructure as the infrastructures we see citizens use every night. But avoiding unexpected increases. While creating a more certain financial future, we will allow municipalities to grow in a sustainable and ordered way. When we talk about cooperating with me, it's not to listen to you and go off and do what we want in Fredericton. It's to work with the people of the community and see how you want us to move things forward because you know what's best for the community of Dieppe. Another important point for us is public security. It's a major priority for all citizens. We will be beginning a complete examination of police services to make sure that their financing is adapted to the needs of every community. In an expanding city like Dieppe, it's essential that financing of police services reflects this reality while being fair and effective. One of the major challenges you've had to take on is access to housing. More families choose to live here, attracted by the quality of life, the different services we have, and the inclusivity of the community. However, this increased demand has worsened the number of affordable houses available. The solution for this problem must be found in cooperation with municipalities. We will take concrete steps like a temporary suppression of sales tax on construction of collective housing to improve rapid construction. In addition to working with your elected representatives, we will find solutions for your specific needs. We recognize your struggle with homelessness. These initiatives must be sustained and amplified in order to make sure that every citizen has a roof to be under. We have nothing to win with those who are not housed. We need affordable housing. And for example, we need to work with the elderly, those who are receiving their property tax bill and look at it and say, look, I can't pay this bill. And they say, well, they're going to look for an apartment and it's $1,800 a month to rent with not too many services around. So we have to look at what affordable housing means and how we can help the people in our community. And so we need the time to define what these things are. This doesn't affect not only the elderly, we talk about them often, but also affects our young people who are staying longer and longer in their parents' homes. I'm not the only one, right? We love them, but that's where they are because they really can't go elsewhere. With increasing growth and a dynamic population, the needs of Dieppe are different from smaller municipalities. That's why we want to implement a distinct housing strategy for major urban centers to answer the needs of urban centers like Dieppe. These are measures which are adapted to local requirements while guaranteeing that development be sustainable and inclusive. Dieppe means that we can realize these by working together and by constantly expanding. But with this growth, there are other challenges that we have to work on together. That's why it's essential for the province and the municipalities work as true partners. We have to continue to build a city where you want to live, where every citizen feels they are safe, and the future is even more promising. Together, we can make sure that this will continue to be a model for the rest of New Brunswick. And that's what we wanted to share with you. Thank you so much. Do we have a question period for members of council? To begin, Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Vautour, for your presentation. It was interesting. You deal with the issue of the unhoused who are in our city and who we see them more and more in Dieppe. And, you can talk about affordable housing today, but the people who are used to living outside a home don't want to live under the orders of any kind. So what do we do for these people? Last Thursday evening, in fact, just not far from here, I saw two people who were taking drugs. They were right in under my eyes, and I said, holy moly, what kind of world are we living in today? This is not a singular case either. But how are our social services? What are we doing for these people? How do we integrate them into, today, I have we say, here's a beautiful house that you can live in. I'm not interested. They say, I want to sleep outside. So what do we do with these people? Currently, we're not doing much. And so we have to see how we can ensure that these individuals have access to healthcare. Often, they either need mental health care or access to regulate this issue of drug addiction, which is often at the base. The mental health and drug addiction are the issues for people who are homeless. So we have to resolve these problems before we give them housing. So first we have to see how we can use the resources we have in healthcare and use them efficiently to free people up and get them access to that. Because when you go look for those services, they aren't there. They're not accessible. So that's number one priority for the Liberal Party is access to primary health care and a certain reform of the health care that we provide now. We want to see how we can work together to provide effective health care in New Brunswick and also provide an opportunity for these people to have access to this care. I have another question, Your Worship, if I may. One more, only quickly. We have a problem in the city of Dieppe, and we constantly get complaints. All my colleagues have received these complaints. There are wasps everywhere, and I'm talking about these little cars with loud sounding engines. And it's at a point where we're sick and tired of it. I'm talking about small cars and also motorcycles, all these issues with modified mufflers. There are no regulations. The mayors made the request last year. We sent letters, particularly to Mr. Austin. We're still waiting for an answer to our letter. I don't call this service and working with our municipalities. And Dieppe is not the only city that is suffering from this problem. So what is the party going to do? What can we expect from you, the Liberal Party, if you're in power? Is it going to take many years before we get an answer to this? I wouldn't think so. I hear them too. We hear them often at night, early in the morning when they head off to work. But I think with the Liberal Party, we work with you is to find the source of the problem. Often we try to resolve problems, and yes, this youth has a car that they bought that was already modified, but this car has passed its inspection. It passed its inspection. So we have to find how can we get to the source of the problem.
plus important, partage des revenus, c'est-à-dire
It's important to sharing of HST, fines, taxes. Yes, one thing we often hear from the Liberal Party is this one size fits all. That doesn't work. And so when we talk about cooperating with municipalities, it's to review with you how
ça, c'est
things could
vraiment
work better. So this is our approach in order to personalize what's needed and the specific needs of Dieppe to better answer the needs of your community. Okay, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for very much for your presentation. It was very interesting to see the measures that you're putting forward. I have a topic that's not in the 4 priorities of the document. It doesn't necessarily relate to municipalities, but with regard to the education system, there are a lot of problems. I was reading in the paper this morning, in fact, that there are teachers who are not accredited and who are in the classroom. What measures would you be able to put forward to improve the system to ensure that there are qualified teachers in classrooms? I have a great deal of experience in education, and for the past 3 years, I've been on the Council of Education for from the Francophone School District. We are cooperating between the department and universities to see how we can encourage young people to get involved in the profession, because young people aren't going into education and teaching. That's the first issue that we want to resolve in order to ensure that we have a bigger workforce. The other challenge, I don't know if you've seen this, but the Francophone South District is launching a recruitment strategy in order to get qualified teachers. First of all, it's very difficult to find them, but I assure you that, Councillor Thibodeau, that the Francophone South District, the new teachers, those who are beginning in education, even if they're graduated with their teaching degree, or the people who have a bachelor's from another country, they begin 2 weeks before the other teachers, and they get 2 weeks of training from the Francophone School District, and they are mentored by retired teachers who guide them during their time at school. So even if we don't have this, it's a huge problem, but it's going to take time to resolve because there are no candidates from university who are going into teaching, but in this time, we have strategies and services offered to new teachers and those who are teaching without certification in order to mentor them. But you have strategies to attract more young people to teaching. For example, a premium for those who want to go into that course. We have to continue to work with the Department of Education, because those who work in the department only have 2 things or a couple of things that they've got underway. So it's how we as a government can support them in this. It's not always easy to get forward. So how do we make the profession more attractive? After 20 years of experience in education, but we are ready to take up this challenge to make the profession more attractive by finding students who like to go to school, because if they like to go to school, maybe they want to go to university and work in that field.
Bon, j'allais dire merci.
I was going to say thank you. Thank you for your answers. And I hope that if you're elected, you won't just focus on budgetary surpluses, but you'll be investing in education and health. Don't worry pas, as they say. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, my mic was off. Thank you very much for your presentation. We should give another 3 minutes. She took 11 minutes and 48 seconds. Oh, for the questions. So they were smart questions. They all came from council members. Thank you very much. Well, You don't have to laugh. It wasn't that funny. Okay, Your Worship, for the Green Party, just to show you that the 2 tickets were in the envelope. Mr. Giguère is the designated representative of the party. Good evening and welcome. Good evening, Your Worship. Councillors, all of you, good evening.
Mon nom est Jacques Giguère.
I'm Jacques Giguère. I'm candidate for the Green Party in Dieppe. Chantal Landry is with me. She is the candidate for the Green Party in the other riding, Dieppe riding, which is Béchediac-Dieppe. Chantal is the director of the Maison des Jeunes à Dieppe, and she resides in Dieppe. Her son is a student. I was in Radio-Canada for 32 years. I was a researcher in production. I was a producer. I was also an editor-in-chief, and with the management team at the end of it all as infrastructure in administration. Before I retired, since 3 years, it goes quickly.
Un bac en information communication de l'Université de Moncton.
A bachelor's in communication from the University of Moncton and a master's in environmental studies from the University of Moncton, as well as a degree in law. I teach at the University of Moncton, and I'm a board member of the Nazareth House. And we hope to see some of you at the event that the Nazareth House is holding later on. And on behalf of the board, thank you for attending. Thank you in advance. So I've been a Dieppe resident for 30 years on Amiro Street, Seal Street, Joseph, and Auxior. And in the past 4 years, my spouse and I have been living in the Memramcook area. So I'm aware of the realities of both communities. So first of all, thank you for taking time to listen to the position of the Green Party on municipal reform. Just a few days out from the election call. So I will be doing door-to-door. And when I do door-to-door, one thing strikes me: people are losing trust. People no longer feel listened to, and they're having more and more difficulty making both ends meet. So imagine living in a government or in a province where the provincial government listens to its citizens and works in collaboration with municipalities and the federal government. Imagine living in a province where health and education are the 2 big priorities of the government in Fredericton. And the Liberals and the Conservatives have not fulfilled this in the past. Imagine a primary healthcare center with physicians and social workers and nurses, ambulance service, a blood clinic, so a real healthcare center for citizens. Imagine a government that's not at the mercy of big multinational companies that overexploit our resources for their own profits, and they leave to the Fredericton and the municipalities the social problems and the economic problems. Imagine if we took a long-term view for future generations and our young people. So in basis, imagine a provincial government that is not out to get economic growth at any cost, but that is really interested in developing the province to the benefit of the ecosystems, the economy, and the people who live in the province. So now I know that's a lot, and it's difficult to imagine it, but it's necessary as we approach this provincial election. And why am I saying this? I think it's urgent. It's socially urgent. There's a lack of staff in our school system, in our healthcare system. The cost of living is exploding, but salaries aren't following. That's what I'm being told. And there is also an economic urgency. So, this blind economic development that is stressing out the middle class and the lower class, is stopping young people from buying their first house. More and more, they're having to pay ever increasing rental costs without, so it's a free for all. And now it's become an expensive for all. And then there's the environmental urgency. Climate change is picking up, and every month we're beating temperature records. In 2023, we released billions of tons of CO2 in the atmosphere. It's another sad record, and it continues to increase despite all the treaties that world governments have signed. Add to that the disappearance of ecosystems everywhere in the province, in the world rather, and even here in Dieppe. 2% of our natural spaces are being replaced by boulevards and streets, asphalt, plastic, cement, carbon, gas, and we see an increasing number of cars. And I know sometimes it's hard to look at ourselves in the mirror, but it's an important question that we should ask ourselves. The Liberals and Conservatives have governed since the beginning of political parties in the province. So both are responsible for the current situation. And so if you don't want things to change, well, you know who to vote for. You know what to do. But this evening, so thank you for giving us this opportunity. And so I would like to propose a true change. And green represents the color of change. So Your Worship, councillors, if I'm here, it's because I believe in that future as well. And to answer the questions that you sent to us, here is what we have to offer you. So first of all, a green government will complete municipal reform by completing a new fiscal framework, which the Conservatives have never wanted to do. But even if they had all the powers to do it, they preferred fighting on the public, in public. We will work together to find the best financial structures for municipalities. So we've had a two-headed taxation system for many years. The province determines the value of properties, and then the municipalities have chosen or have determined the rates that ratepayers will pay. So, and this system is not working. So what should we do? So a number of things are possible. There are interesting examples elsewhere in the country that are worth looking at. So redistribute 1% of the HST to municipalities. That's a very interesting option. And some of your needs can also be filled in other ways, and I'll come back to that. So what I basically want to say is that what's important is that we have to put the citizen at the heart of our discussions. We have to make sure that we have an adult discussion, a transparent discussion, to make sure that municipalities can sustain their financial well-being. In terms of affordable housing, we will quickly impose a ceiling on rents. Housing should be a win-win situation. Win for the owner and winner for the rental. But right now, it's just in the owner's favor. We will also adopt an act of first refusal to allow the New-Brunswick Housing Corporation and ONGs to acquire cheaper property. The Green Party would give priority to the construction of public housing that is nonprofit to increase the number of options for low-income families or moderate-income families. And on that topic, we will work together. And don't underestimate your power as a municipality to influence the projects. It's huge. We have to prioritize and attract ecological neighborhood parties. So net zero projects. Where are the intergenerational cooperatives, for example? Housing is not just a roof, it also has to be, also has to be of quality and bring quality life. So I see densification, I see urban spread as if that's the only way that we can develop. But our society is changing. So a green government will give municipalities, will accompany municipalities rather, in decarbonizing our economy, our society, our transportation system, and our housing system. So in the short term, to help citizens, a new program, assistance program for energy will replace the current program, which offered $100 a year to low-income people. The Higgs government canceled that program, and he did nothing to help the government or to help residents pay their bills or to deal with the sharp increases in electricity rates. Rather than helping citizens, he generated a $1 billion surplus last year. $1 billion, that is $1,000 million. And now brace yourself. Today, we've learned that another $500 million have accumulated, while at the same time, educational and healthcare needs have skyrocketed. It's a shame. The goal of the government shouldn't mean to generate a surplus. The government is there to offer services to residents, and that's what we would do. A green government will finance the renovation of houses so that we can reduce our energy consumption and reduce their bills. And we'll ask NB Power to adopt cheaper sources of energy managed by a smart system where we can stock energy, we can store it. Now, and I'll end by talking about safety, because that's another issue that you raised, another important issue that you raised. So the RCMP is doing its best with the resources available to it. So, but it's not a problem of will, it's an organizational problem and a problem of lack of means. And this problem is becoming horrible for residents. So speeding, loud vehicles, racing, burnouts, that's a problem here, but it's a problem in Memramcook as well. So with the population that's increasing, there's also a number of the number of offenses the crime is increasing. So there are individuals that's suffering from addictions. So we need an interface between the RCMP and the citizen to deal with this issue. So a green government will increase community policing, create multifunctional, multidisciplinary teams who will be tasked with creating bridges between the services that are offered by government and the needs of our citizens. And the principle is easy. So it's about reinforcing the partnerships between organizations that offer services, use problem resolution techniques to act proactively on problems that give rise to criminality. So basically, acting upstream and not downstream. So what we want is to increase the collaboration with the RCMP, or community organizations who are doing an excellent job, and they have expertise in health and social matters and so forth. So, Your Worship, a green government is not just about the environment. A green government is much more than that. A green government is about developing the province for the people who live there. I would have liked to talk about our vision for protecting and promoting French. I know that's important for you, but that'll be for another meeting. So Chantal and I we'll be working on developing those points so that we can answer your questions. So on that note, thank you for your time. Thank you for the presentation. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for your presentation and for your speech. In terms of municipal reform, now we worked hard on that, and it took a lot of work to put that in place, and it was imposed on us, more or less, from the government. And what you're saying is that you're going to take the axe to municipal reform. Could you develop a little bit more on that? What is in your platform? You're going to cancel reform? Is that what you were saying? No, I didn't. I never said we wanted to cancel it. Oh, that's what I understood. Okay. No, I never said that. No, it's not about canceling. It's about completing it. Maybe I used the wrong verb without realizing, but we're not going to come back on what's been done. There's been a lot of work done, but we're going to complement it. And what was not completed is the fiscal framework. The Conservatives never had the courage to kind of go to the end of the process. So, and that's when I talked about the 1%. But thank you for pointing that out, because if you didn't understand that, then that was maybe a mistake on my part. Any other questions? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to continue on the point that was raised by José. So you say that you're going to complement it, but how are you going to go about that? Can we expect collaboration with municipalities or municipal associations? And will you be actively listening? Well, there's an expression that says it takes two to tango. So in this type of situation, it's not about imposing a complement to like a financial framework. That's the last thing that I wanted to talk about. That's not something we're thinking about at all. The idea is to come back to the table with you where the other parties left and to say, listen, now what is the best fiscal framework that will take that pressure, that financial pressure off municipalities so that you can think long-term and you can plan long-term, and that will help citizens and it might even help to lower taxes. If we can compensate in some other way, maybe that'll help you reduce the mill rate. So we have to put, and one thing I did say is that we have to put the interest of the citizen at the heart of the discussion. Those citizens are the ones who vote for us. So maybe we should take time to listen to them. And when we go door to door, people are telling us, you're not listening to us. You didn't listen to us. Well, I don't want to hear that kind of thing. So what I want is, when we talked to Kevin, Megan, and David Kuhn, it's clear that that nothing will be imposed without you being ready to sign off on it. All right, thank you. Councillor Brideau. Oh, I think, can I change my question? Or, sorry, I changed my mind. Councillor Jeannet, please. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to get you to talk a little bit about policing. So, you know that costs are rising. So could you develop a little bit more, elaborate a little bit more on what your solution is in that regard? Well, the municipalities and the province and the RCMP negotiate those types of things. And, Member Coupe is a great example. We had a police station, and now it's in Sackville. So if you want an ambulance, you have to call the police, or if you call the police, I hope you know, I hope it's not an urgent situation because it takes 45 minutes for them to get there. So we have to revisit this. And when you go into a municipality, you see a church and a school at the heart of the village, and the province's responsibility in terms of healthcare, public safety, and safety in general, that too should be at the heart of the municipality. It should be the same type of service as schools, but we don't see it. So we have to think about that. And so like Sackville has a hospital. They have an emergency department. In Dieppe, Memramcook, well, forget it. We don't. I've been in Acadia for 40 years. There used to be 2 hospitals when I got here. The population has doubled and we still have 2 hospitals. So at one point, we're gonna have to take this seriously. Same thing for police services. So police can't respond to every call. And you know, I was talking about the interface. We need an interface between the police and citizens, you know, to respond to people who are speeding at night, for example. We need that interface. So we have the police that have all the police authorities, but we have social agents as well that have our other tools, and this works elsewhere. So there's nothing stopping us from doing it here and elsewhere in New Brunswick. Okay, so you'll agree that we need to revisit policing exhaustively. Yeah, and that's part of that exercise. That has to be part of the thinking. So when we talk to some police officers, that's all they're waiting for. They're waiting for that discussion. So, you know, if we can free them up, I mean, it's part of the negotiations. It's a process, but that's one of the answers to your concerns. Any further questions? I don't see any. So thank you for your presentation. We are waiting. We know that the elections have to be called soon. We're excited about it. We'll be listening, and we'll be listening during the campaign as well. At, what is 28, 30 days? Where are our experts there? But we will be listening to each and every one of you, and we'll be listening with our citizens' interest in mind. You know, we talk, and sometimes we talk, you know, with our stomachs full, but there are other citizens who maybe are disadvantaged as well. There are other issues that we have to address and that depend as much on the province as on the federal government. And so what we want to do is continue to work together, regardless of the party that's elected. And we haven't always had that privilege in the past. So we hope to come back to that collaboration. So thank you to both of you, all 4 of you. And we'll continue our meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Alors, ça nous amène juste un rappel que nos...
All right. And just a reminder that the meeting that takes place on the 3rd Monday of the month are information meetings and discussion meetings, and we meet with various stakeholders from the community. I see a few people coming in. There's a change of a shift change that's taking place here. So we'll give you a few minutes to kind of just get settled. The first presentation that we're going to be hearing is the Dieppe Gold Blades Skating Club. And Kathy Murty Moret should be here to make that presentation. So hello.
Une des organisations à laquelle j'ai
So this is certainly an organization that I personally have worked with my three girls. Skating has always been one of my favorite sports, and it's a sport that builds our young people's character when they have to learn to get up after a fall. So those are good lessons to learn. But all right, so if you could just name yourself before you begin, and then you can start. Hello, Your Worship, councillors. I'm Kathy Murthy-Moret. I'm the president of the Gold Blades Skating Club, and I'm with the vice president, who has been and we've been with the organization since May, or on the board since May, rather. We're going to be talking about our club. We were created 52 years ago. We're one of the largest figure skating learn to skate clubs in New Brunswick. We're a nonprofit organization run entirely by volunteers, and we offer a variety of programs. So learning to skate at 12, and we also help newcomers as well. And we also have elite members who compete at the national level. Our mission is to enable everyone to learn to skate and to continue skating throughout their lives, whether it's for fun, to stay in shape, or to achieve new goals. This might be a dream that they've kind of harbored since they were very young, or these might be people who want to go to the Canada Games, for example. In terms of our members, most are part of the Learn to Skate program. That's where we have we see our largest numbers. In 2023, 2024, we had 372 members who registered, and that's starting from age 2 up to adulthood. We have newcomers who join, they write to us, and they want to learn how to skate. They come to Canada, they're interested in learning how to skate, and that's people of all ages. We have a number of young people as well who receive a grant. We strive to include everyone from the community. In terms of success stories for 2023, 2024, we were invitational hosts of Canada New Brunswick Winter Skate. So that was at the Uniplex. We have 2 skaters who qualified for the Skate Canada Challenge. We have 9 of our skaters qualified for the Atlantic Challenge. And there were numerous opportunities for our volunteers, both parents and skaters of all ages, adults, children. So there's lots of opportunities to do volunteer work for different activities. Training in Dieppe, we're quite fortunate. There are a number of ice surfaces that are busy, but we have access to them. So there's a good cooperation between associations. We try to help each other out as much as possible in terms of ice time, and we try to make adjustments when there are competitions. We use the Olympic rink to offer the Can Skate program. And that's a large rink that allows us to serve a large number of people. We also have the Uniplex surface, and this allows our athletes to train on surfaces that are similar to those used for national competitions, so that when they get to these national competitions, they're used to skating on a rink of that size. And then we have the Assumption rink as well at the Uniplex, which allows us to offer quality conditioning sessions. In terms of challenges and objectives this year, we want to maintain the development of athletes at different levels. And as I said, we start with young people who are just starting to learn, or adults who are just starting to learn. And then it ranges from, adults and skaters who do doubles and triple jumps, and they are competing at a higher level. We strive for inclusion in all our programs. There was a lot of demand this year for specific cases, and that's something that we'd like to be able to make the sport accessible to everyone. We want to continue offering a quality program at affordable prices. It's difficult for some families to have their youth in sports, so we try to keep our costs affordable. And we'd like to have more ice time. I'm sure that you've already heard this, but so that our members can have more time. Our number of skaters in certain groups are increasing, and at higher levels, these people need more ice, more space on the ice so that they can execute their jumps and so forth. So that's it for me. I don't know if you have any questions. I will do my best to answer you. But as I said, I just started in my position in May, so all right. Are there any questions from councillors?
Pas de questions. Moi, je veux juste ajouter que
I just want to add that based on my experience, which is quite dated, but when you have to get up a number of times after a fall, it's a good experience. It's a learning experience. We lived that with 3 of our daughters, so we know the history and the background of your group. So, all right. Well, thank you for your presentation. I hope that things will continue to evolve in the direction that you want them to go in, especially with in terms of introducing newcomers to the sport. That'll be something that'll stay with them, and I hear this often. The city offers various programs during the winter season, and there are skates available for if people can't buy them, so at least they can experience and have that kind of experience of gliding on the glass. I've stopped gliding about 4 years ago, but all right, thank you very much. Thank you.
maintenant, ça nous amène à notre
This
troisième.
brings us to our third guest, the presentation by Kafi.
Oh. Et voilà. On commence à voir des images qu'on reconnaît.
We're starting to see pictures that we recognize.
Bonsoir, bienvenue.
Good evening and welcome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tina. I'm the Assistant Director to CAFI, our Welcome Center and Support Center for Immigrants to Francophone New Brunswick. I'm here this evening to tell you what CAFI has been doing for 2024-2025. Unfortunately, our director, Angèle Lausier, can't attend because she tested positive for COVID this morning. So she has asked me to replace her this evening and to be here before council this evening. So I'm very pleased to be with you today. So for CAFI's presentation, CAFI's mission, since we passed the strategic plan, is to contribute to the integration of immigrants to the Francophone areas of southeastern New Brunswick. And CAFI's vision is to be recognized as the center of excellence for supporting immigrants. CAFI has been around for some 18 years, And every year we welcome 700 new people. But in the last 2 years, and in 2023, we welcomed some 2,800 clients. And so CAFI is for the moment recognized as the biggest welcome center and an establishment center or settlement center for Francophones in Atlantic Canada. We have some 40 employees and we have 13 different nationalities among staff. So there's a great deal of diversity in CAFI itself. As you know, our offices are here. Our head office is here in Dieppe. It's at 140 Champlain Street. It's where the administration staff is. And since 2023, we have another office at 200 Champlain Street, which has the welcome and settlement services. We have a satellite office in Cap Acadie, and we've been there since we got IRCC financing for the program in Cap Acadie. In addition to that, we have new satellite offices, and this is quite new for 2023-2024. We had added satellite offices in 3 New Brunswick areas, Miramichi, Fredericton, and St. John. Thanks to the partnership with Francophone community centers in those cities and financing from Immigration New Brunswick. Let me show you here the continuum of services. This is the type of services that we want to offer through CAFI under the strategic plan 2023-2025, which we passed. So the objective was to align our programs, which are offered to new arrivals, following the priority needs of those who move here. With all these priority needs, we have identified the 3 sectors which are important for supporting new arrivals. So there's the settlement sector. In the settlement sector, we have the welcome and intake, training and orientation, and a support program. And in the integration sector, we have brought together all the programs for community connection. And then finally, we have the retention program, which supports our retention services for international students. And we have a new project, Acadian Identity, with citizenship, Acadian citizenship. Let me give you some figures that we have seen throughout 2023-2024. With regard to intake and settlement, we have welcomed and done intake on 2,800 clients. We have given 61 workshops, information clinics, 40 workshops for parents, and 11 welcome meetings. With regard to language support, we have offered throughout 2023-2024 98 conversation groups, 335 French language sessions for young people, and 65 individual tutoring sessions with children who speak neither English nor French, 4 weeks of summer camp. With regard to community connections, we have paired 101 clients with Canadian families. We have organized 40 cultural and sporting activities, 15 activities regarding dialogue and culture, and 138 activities for networking for families and adults. Let me now show you some pictures of our activities. They were taken over 2023-2024. These are cooking workshops, sport activities, Halloween, tutoring, activities with children and firefighters, and some posters that we have published on social networks to promote and inform people about our activities. Let's move on to what we have accomplished in 2023-2024. During this year, it was mainly launching the HIPPY program. HIPPY program is a learning program for parents who have preschool children. There are home visits from these visitors, and these visitors help the moms and dads to educate their children before they go to school. As I mentioned a moment ago, we also opened a new office in Cap Acadie and also in Shediac with the financial support of the IRCC. In addition, we opened 3 new satellite offices in Fredericton, Miramichi, and St. John. We then established, through the partnership agreement, intercultural training through Vitalité and CSRCE. And this was provided in the northern part of the province of New Brunswick, with where there are more than 1,000 employees. Also, there was a partnership agreement with the Regional Services Commission for Southeastern New Brunswick to provide intercultural training to employees and employers, and also those who are doing research. Another important event during the course of this year was a second edition of what we call Monde en Fête. It's a festival which was well supported by the city of Dieppe and which was a great success because more than 1,200 people came to participate in this edition. This year, the festival is coming back again. Another important event of 2023-24 was our Galaxy project. It was a community connection project, and it won a prize in Éloise under support for the arts. And so we received this award last May. Additionally, we have another accomplishment. We received new promotional tools thanks to the Community Services Fund. And finally, as you know, there is a pilot project of having these satellite offices in Miramichi, Fredericton, and St. John. So this pilot project was a success, and we were able to renew our agreement with the province of New Brunswick in order to continue this project through the course of this year. Here are some pictures that were taken during the launching of the HIPPY program. Also, we said that there were 1,200 participants at the World Celebrates Festival. 75 volunteers contributed to the success of this festival. For this year, the mandate is coming back again, and it will be held from November 1st to 3rd here in the city of Dieppe. And once again, thank you to the city of Dieppe for supporting this festival. This was the picture taken when we received the Éloise Award. Our vision for 2024-2025, as I said a moment ago, we have established a partnership with the Regional Services Commission, and so we have launched a program for intercultural training. The purpose of this is to make people aware and to understand the cultural diversity around us, and to learn the new realities of today, as well as to provide supports to employers and employees both. We also have a very important project for us this year. It's a feasibility study in order to open a daycare center, which would answer the needs of new arrivals. And as I said a moment ago, the Festival Monde en Fête is coming back this year. It's a third edition, and it will be held, as I said, from November 1st to 3rd. So we invite all of you to attend this festival. One of the major points that we're waiting to hear about this year will be the answer to our request to renew our agreement with IRCC. So with this new agreement, it's a 5-year agreement, in fact, we hope to be able to offer even more services to help new arrivals. Here you can see the training posters that we provided to explain intercultural training. And let me give you some figures relating to our clients. As I said, more than 2,800 clients were welcomed over the course of 2023-2024. Compared to 2022-2023, this meant an increase of some 60%. And also, the 5 countries, main countries, where we welcome these new arrivals are Morocco, Cameroon, Algeria, Côte d'Ivoire, and Mexico. There you are. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have some. Thank you. Council member questions. Councillor Lantang. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for this presentation. One quick question. You have 2 offices in Dieppe. I assume it's because there's not enough space where you were? That's quite right. Right. Yes. In fact, as I said a moment ago, there are 40 employees, and so when we had moved to Dieppe, there were only 22 employees. And after all the positions were added, because of the number of clients we welcomed over the last 2 years, we had to increase staffing, and the space wasn't big enough for all of us. So we got IRCC funding, which allowed us to find more space, and fortunately we were able to find it. There's another office in Dieppe. Do you eventually plan to bring all employees in under one? That would be the idea. For the time being, we are contenting ourselves with these 2 rental locations, but ideally we would like to have one office where all departments, welcome, settlement, administration, and also community connections could be housed. So be it for the employees, you know, there are 2 different teams who are in 2 different sets of offices. But as I said a moment ago, the ideal would be, the dream would be to have one office for all of us. Great, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm very pleased to see that you've launched the HIBI program. My question as it relates to that is to ask you if new arrivals perceive when they come here that they have to put their children in Anglophone schools. Have you been able to demystify that and say if the children go to Francophone schools, they will learn English very naturally with the education that they're going to get? Because we hear this a lot, and I hear it still, that the new arrivals come and say, well, if we want our children to speak English, we have to put them into English language schools. So is this program going to make families more aware before school starts and explain how things work with regard to education? In fact, The HIPPY program has existed in the past, and this program has been launched by Motomater Center, and CAFI was chosen to offer this program in French in New Brunswick. So CAFI is the first center to offer this program in French in New Brunswick. The curriculum that has been offered to families who are involved in this program, the program is delivered in French. So clearly, the families who are going to be sending their children to school through this program will be, so the programs are already in French. The programs themselves are delivered in French and provided in French. So it promotes French language education. CAFI will always promote French language education. However, clearly, the decisions are always made by parents. Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. It was well supported, and there are always new things to learn at every opportunity. So thank you once again. I thank you. It's been my pleasure. The next group is the alert system in case of emergency. Mr. Cormier and Ms. Albert.
Si je peux le trouver. Julie?
Besoin d'aide.
You need a hand? It's not very often you think you can give a hand to the head firefighter.
C'est quand même pas un sujet brûlant.
It's not a burning question.
C'est notre tour à faire la présentation. On va le faire, moi et Julie ensemble.
Julie and I will be doing this presentation together. So I'll give you some history and explain why we're here this evening. If you remember, about 2.5 years ago, you had put in a request to have a public alert system. And so for 2 years, we've been waiting to announce this new thing to you. I'll give you the history of it, and Julie will tell you the details. So as I had said to the council, I was waiting for Guardian IMS, and it offers us an official tool to manage emergency measures and a dashboard for the population and citizens, and also an alert system that we're going to tell you about this evening. We've also chosen the same name as Moncton and Riverview in order to ensure that we are providing uniform messages throughout the 3 communities. Our communication systems work together to have uniform key messages for the 3 municipalities. Equally, we concluded that we were going to be using this tool for city operations, so it allows us to prepare employees in case an emergency were declared, and would be able to communicate much more easily. So the difference between what we're presenting this evening and what the Government of Canada has implemented called Alert is that we are using it for our local and municipal announcements as well. And we have access to Alert Ready system for more urgent cases where people's lives are in danger. So we are not getting rid of Alert Ready. We are simply using something for the city of Dieppe to put our messages out. As I said, the system is a CIT-R1. We support cooperation at the regional level with Moncton and Riverview. Moncton has the tool since 2019, Riverview since 2023, and it took us another year of hard work with the provider and the internal team at the city to implement it. So, as you know, it's a 3-year agreement. We have completed 2023 2024, 2025. After that, in 2026, we'll be doing an assessment. And with the increase of population in 2026 to go into 2027. So I'll allow Julie to tell you about the program and the here and how and why, and then I'm here for questions afterwards. Thank you. Now, the sous-chef, Your Worship and councillors, thank you for welcoming us this evening to present this Dieppe alert system. I'm not sure that the presentation followed us here, but we can improvise. So this is a new notification tool for emergencies. I'm specific about this because we talked about fatigue, a lack of interest. So this system is going to be used for our emergencies at the municipal level. Right now, we use social media, we use our website, we have an info letter on our website. However, we know that when something serious happens, we need to get people's attention. And so this system is going to allow us to send text messages to residents and email messages that they will see a design that will attract their attention. So it's outside of what is normally sent out for our community activities. So there are various functionalities with this system. First of all, there's a public dashboard. This is accessible all the time for anyone. You don't need to subscribe. You can go on the dashboard to see what's happening. And we'll tell you a little bit about this later. And what's interesting about this, you can receive email alerts by text message or both. And in order to come back to the Alert Ready system, unfortunately, we do not have the authority to override mute on phones. We don't have that permission. Sometimes people wonder if their phone is off, if they're still going to get the alert. No, you have to be careful. You're only going to get it when you're connected to the cell phone system. So there's a quick difference because sometimes people are used to, with the federal system, to get all text messages. It allows us to send messages for specific geographic regions. So if there's an amber alert for Saint-Anselme, we can send it to the Saint-Anselme zone. Once again, this allows us to avoid confusion or the fatigue of getting many alerts which don't concern you. So you ignore them and you can have these targeted messages, which will be very useful for us. So we talked about boil water orders. You could also have major fires and evacuation alerts. It could be a weather warning, like an ice storm, where the warming centers are going to be opened. It could be dangerous driving conditions. For example, if there's a bridge down, the system will allow us to send out this type of notification. So I was talking about the dashboard in real time. So it can be consulted at any time of the day. You don't need to be a subscriber. And so I invite you to go and visit it regularly because there are very relevant information on it. All the weather alerts from Environment Canada are there. These alerts will appear on the dashboard. All the power outages will also appear here. There are important links to how to get ready in case of emergency, how to be prepared for a 72-hour outage. We also have a link to help our friends in the RCMP and how to give notice of a crime. There's very relevant information for residents with regard to their safety. So it's really a one-stop shop. So for email and text alerts, you have to subscribe. I saw that some of you tried to subscribe, so I really appreciate the fact that you tried to test it out. It allowed us to tweak a few details, and so we'll be in contact with you over the weekend to help you complete your registration.
Vous avez porté attention à ça.
But thank you for paying attention to it.
Ça va être très facile. Les gens vont pouvoir se
It's easy
rendre.
to subscribe, pardon me. People can go to dieppealerts.ca. There's a connection button. You fill in a form. You choose the type of alerts that you want to have. People will have options. You can choose to get text or email alerts. You can customize it if you will. And then I just want to add that you can have accounts to get alerts that affect our family members. So if ever a grandmother comes to Dieppe and she's not very technologically advanced, we encourage you to help them by creating accounts for them if it's possible to do so. It's one email address per account, but you can create an email address for the person and you know what's happening when you want to watch out for our family members. People don't have always access to the internet, people that you know, you have a neighbor, they need maybe a little bit more help. So we're also looking for helping each other. This is part of our promotion campaign that we're going to undertake. And all next year, you're going to be hearing a lot about it. We're going to be inviting people to register, and we're going to do an open door session. We'll be there with a kiosk at the fire hall, inviting people to register to Alert Dieppe. So I think that's it for me. I don't know if Mark wanted to add anything or if you have any questions. I think you've included all the information. Okay, questions?
Deux questions, Monsieur
I see two
Lantaigne.
questions already. Councillor Lantaigne.
Sais-tu que ça n'a pas fonctionné ou c'est...
Now, I registered, but it's not working? Oh, it's not yet active. Okay. Well, we're going to be launching the site this week. So we ask you to follow us on Facebook, and we have a special message that we're going to publish on Facebook. And that'll be the fact that you tried to sign up, that helped us kind of tweak our process there. All right, so it hasn't been launched yet, but I know that we have to go to Dieppe Alert or Alert Dieppe.ca, DieppeAlerts.ca rather. But yes, well, we have it's in Dieppe Mag that you'll be getting later on this week, and it's on the city website as well. We'll also be notifying the media. We'll be doing a campaign as well. We'll be attending various events as well, and we'll have promotional items as well that we'll be distributing. So there's a campaign. Yes, there'll be a link on the website page as well, so it'll be easy to find. All right, any other questions? Councillor Jeannet. Thank you very much for the presentation. Very interesting. I was trying to understand. So you have to sign up to get the alerts, but if there's an emergency situation, like an evacuation or like a major fire, if there's a visitor that's in a part of the city, and citizens get that because that the alerts are geolocalized, you can't add people who are in the area though, even if they're not signed up? No, not to my knowledge. But don't forget that we'll be deciding at that. We'll be thinking, or we'll be asking ourselves, do we use the federal system? So if we'll make the decision at that time. But it would be interesting, and if there's a boil water advisory, this is a good tool for that kind of thing. But all right, thank you for explaining that. So you could end up with 60,000 people signed up. Well, we're going to start. We're aiming for 10,000 to start off with, but the federal system have 12 to 15,000 people signed up. But well, maybe I'll just add for people who are outside Dieppe, we don't have unfortunately, we don't have the ability to do targeted ads with this. You have to sign up, but all three communities have this software. So I have access to residents in Riverview and Moncton and vice versa. They have access to my database as well. So we can work together. And in terms of visitors, as the fire chief said, depending on what's happening, we can go to a higher level of alert if we decide to. And, and I'm sure we'll get more people signing up than Moncton has. Councillor Godbout. Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. And thank you for the effort that you put into creating this. When we were elected councillors, I think we understood that some of our responsibilities is not just the day-to-day, but we also have to deal with emergencies and those types of situations. So we ask ourselves a question every year, are we doing enough for these types of situations? So I think this tool is extremely important. And so I'm happy that we have it. Something that I'd like to have a clarification on, it's not clear to me, the notifications go in what form? Or is it text or? Well, it's up to you. You can choose to get a notification by text or by email, or you can choose both. I would advise you to always activate both. Text messages, we're limited with the number of characters that we can use, but emails can contain more information. The text messages will invite you to go to the platform to go get more information. So for example, for a boil water advisory, there's a series of steps. And in a text message that's bilingual, we have a character limit. So if you can choose both text and email, do so. If you don't have an email address, you can just get a text, and then that'll tell you how to go get the information on the dashboard. All right, thank you. All right, my second question is that in the event of an emergency, when you have your list of things to do, where does notifying the public come? I'm asking this because as citizens, sometimes we ask, I'm going to choose this such and such tool to keep informed, and I'm not going to choose a tool where the messages are the last place that this service is the last place that messages are sent to. So what's the order of priority for this tool, and how did you choose that priority? Well, the priority in terms of deciding to use the alert system is based on what the risks are and if we want people to do things immediately. So for example, for me, Facebook, that's not somewhere I would send people information on emergencies. But so the tool that we have is that if we decide that people need to take action immediately, that's when we use that system. And maybe I'll just add something to that. So this is the #1 tool. This is where we want people to go for up-to-date and in real-time information. Facebook, sometimes, you see posts from 4 days ago. So we want to make sure that Dieppe Alerts is the #1 place for urgencies. And then we have our other social media as well in second and third place, because not everybody's going to sign up to Dieppe Alerts to begin with. But Dieppe Alerts is really the first place to go for information. All right, well, maybe a last question then. In terms of the choice of information, you don't want to flood people with information. Are you going to be including like street closures and so forth? No, it'll just be emergencies. So, if there's a culvert that breaks, and then you can't pass, the road conditions become difficult, you can't pass because of the flooding. In terms of construction, we'll use the same procedure as usual. So you can sign up for the construction project page, but this is really for emergencies, and that's the only reason that it'll be used for. All right, well, maybe there are provincial highways, because I see, if there's if a provincial highway that's closed. That could be included. It's because it's well, that's more planned projects, but I would say continue to use our normal channels for planned programs. But for the alert program is really for urgencies or emergencies. But there is an interactive cart, and that'll give you information that you can go and get. So, for example, 511, Environment Canada, advisories. We've also put our security cameras as well, and there's a hurricane tracker as well, but they're not we don't use push notifications. It's just for information purposes. So if you want to regularly go to that page to see what environmental urgencies are taking place, construction, that's available as well. We also wanted to help our partners raise their profile. So we have a link to the RCMP, to the Emergency Measures Organization, but you won't be getting a text or emails for that. But okay, well, that's a good balancer. Thank you. Well, if you have time to kill, you have another tool that you can read. All right, I don't see anyone else with questions. So thank you to both of you. Thank you for your presentation. And that brings us to item number 5, rather. This is the Arthur J. Leblanc Center Renovation Project. And Mr. Bourque will be the presenter. Good evening and welcome. Right, well, good evening.
Vous l'avez pas à l'écran, hein? L'avez-vous?
Oh, you can't see it on the screen? I can see it, but you see it on your screen, your little screens there? Okay.
Bon, ben, bonsoir, Monsieur le Maire, membre du Conseil.
Well, Your Worship, councillors, good evening. I've come to talk about the renovation project of the AGL Center. This is a renovation to net zero project. This project has been in the work since 2021. So now we're moving to another stage. I would like to take this opportunity to salute the members of my team who are here. And you've probably already met Nyla. She's come with me a few times when we're talking about waste. And Rémi is here as well. You know him. He is a building specialist, so you'll see him regularly when we get to the budget process. And Guillaume Locheux. Guillaume is our technical services manager. And this won't be he'll be back in a few months to talk about the equipment replacement program. So this is the team that's involved in this file. We have other people as well that are involved, but I wanted to take a minute to introduce them to you. All right, so as I said, this project, or the initial project, had been approved by City Council in 2021. And I'll talk about that initial phase, $2.5 million. That's what we had received $500,000 from the FCM, from the Green Municipal Fund. And it was in relation to energy efficiency. We had targets that we needed to meet to get that amount. So our GHG emissions were estimated at 267 tons. So we were aiming for a 37% reduction for the building. And we achieved an annual reduction in energy costs of around $92,000, or those were targets, that we had to attain. So the work that was planned for the initial project, and I put a check mark beside the items that were completed. So the LED lights were replaced. Solar panels were installed. We had come to council to get that project approved in 2022. So now you see them you can see them on the building. We've got sliding doors. You can't see them, but they are there. And the heat pumps as well. And then we've also got electric surfacers. We've got 2 of them. And we have 5, or actually we have 4 electric surfaces, 1 for each rink. So these were all projects that qualified under the project initially. And then we came back to council at one point to talk about heat recovery. And that project had been approved and it's been done partially. So the second phase of this project, if we go ahead with it, we would like to redo that part. So we'll be talking about this and we would complete that work at the same time. We've got new heaters as well that have to be replaced. Initially, we were thinking of replacing the boards and making some architectural improvements, even if the building is structurally is sound. There are improvements to be made to the refrigeration system. There are LED lights on the Saint-Anselme surface as well. So, well, actually, in the building, you have the Olympic rink. And then we have 2 dehumidification units on the Saint-Anselme surface that are not working anymore, so they have to be replaced. They're quite out of date. So I'll just come back to the financing question. So the estimated project initially was $2.5 million. We received $500,000 from the Green Municipal Fund, $500,000 from the Regional Development Corporation, and the municipality gave $1.5 million. And to receive funding under the Green Municipal Fund, we have to go through the FCM, and they have a funding program there. That's how we get the funds. So that's just a summary of the project initially. So at one point we ran into a few challenges. So the boards on the Saint-Anselme surface are too old. They have to be replaced. But so is it the boards that are keeping the bleachers up or vice versa? That's kind of where we're at. The boards, now we can renovate them, but if we renovate them, then we don't meet current standards in terms of flexibility. So, and if we want to replace the boards with standard boards, well, then they have to be installed on the concrete ice surface, which brings me to the second point. The concrete ice surface has a 45-year lifespan, and we're at year 43. So there are risks associated. So at one point, we'll have to replace it. So we'd like to plan the replacement rather than being forced because of a surprise there to have to replace it. In terms of the mechanical room, the refrigeration, as I said, there are things that need to be replaced, and the mechanical room no longer meets standards. So we have to build a and there are also other components that need to be replaced in the mechanical room. And the chiller that needs work as well, that has to be replaced. And for the Olympic rink, we'll have to replace that one as well. I talked about the bleachers as well. Well, the bleachers don't meet building codes right now, or the current codes anyways. And we've made improvements along the way, but they're not accessible. So these are all things that we'd like to address at the same time. So just for information purposes, the Arthur G. Leblanc, the Saint-Anselme surface dates back to 1971, but and the Olympic surface is 2020 or 2002. So, when I started, that's when these surfaces were created. So what that means, the age, is that we have to, there's a chiller that'll have to be replaced in the coming year. I just wanted to mention that. So let me talk about the new project now. We had come to council in 2023 in June, so just a bit more than a year ago. We had talked about sending a complementary request or a request for additional funding to the Green Municipal Fund. So we made that request and we received confirmation of the amount during the summer, and that's why we're here. But I'd like to talk about what we're proposing to do in terms of work with the new project. So all of the components of the initial project would be included in this revamped project, if you will. So we would like to combine the refrigeration systems. So with the addition of the Olympic surface, we have the capacity to cool both or to operate both rinks. So what we're proposing is to combine both ice surfaces in the mechanical room. So that'll take some investments. So, and that brings us to the new ice surface, as I mentioned. I said there was a 45-year lifespan. We're at year 43. So the new ice surface would be done at the same time. And then, it'll be easier to put in all the pipes. And so that's what we'd like to do. We could also buy and install new boards that meet current standards like we have on the three other rinks. So we could buy new boards. We could also replace the bleachers so that they're up to code. In terms of the dehumidification unit, at the beginning, we were going to replace the two Dectron units. They're suspended from the ceiling, and we were going to replace them with a central system, including air conditioning. Now, we have lots of activities going on both rinks, and it can get very hot in there, and it was hot there today. Our seasons are lengthening. We're also looking at painting walls and the structural beams. There are certain things that we had included in the initial project, but we'd go further this time. Complete renovation as well, ceiling, changing rooms, toilets, public washrooms, and so forth. And we had also talked about adding a 5th dressing room, because the equipment room on the Saint-Anselme size that's at the front of the building, that would no longer be used. So that is no longer being used. So that would allow us to create a 5th dressing room. On our 3 other rinks, we have 5 dressing rooms. This would give us an extra dressing room. And some teams have girls on them, so this would allow us to accommodate both genders. Pickleball as well. That's one of our, when we built that to pickleball court, we wanted to give people access to the court so they could use the change rooms and the washrooms. So like during the summer. So those are all kind of factors that would be included, or aspects that would be included in the new project. So what is the estimated project? $7.5 million. That includes the $2.5 million that was the initial project. So we would be looking at an initial 1.5 contribution from the Green Municipal Fund. The RDC has given us $500,000. We would have to do an additional loan of $3 million, and then there would be $1 million contribution. And we've had echoes from the province, or with respect to a second contribution, maybe $400,000 or $500,000. And then we'll need a resolution at one point. And when we're talking about energy efficiency, all the initiatives that we have, sometimes we'll often go and get 20-25% from power or for NB Power, and so not all aspects of this program would qualify for grants from NB Power, but the mechanical room changes, the air conditioning and so forth, there's an opportunity to go and get more funding for those aspects. So that's basically the project budget. Now, if we compare both options, so option one, and that was our initial project, we're talking, it involved heat recovery, minimum work on bleachers to make them safe and the most accessible possible, but we're still not up to code. It would involve some renovation of existing changing rooms, renovation and partial painting of the arena's interior, repairs required to the refrigeration system, new lights, and then the dehumidification unit. And we're not talking about air conditioning, we're talking only about dehumidification. So this project would exclude the new concrete service. We were going to do new boards, but we can't do it in this project. Bleachers as well to bring them up to code. And I know this is a bit repetitive, but these are all things that would be excluded under the option one. And so I'm just looking quickly. These are kind of repeated information. I can go through them one by one if you like, but I think I'll go to the next slide. All right, option number that staff is recommending is this, and it includes both rinks. So we would combine the two ice surfaces, new boards, new bleachers, new surface, complete interior renovation, dehumidification, and air conditioning. So all aspects of the first project would be included. In terms of energy costs, we're talking about an additional $20,000, or sorry, it would be a higher reduction in GHG emissions if we could get what we wanted. So that would generate additional savings. In terms of the structure of the Saint-Anselme Arena is good, but we could extend its lifespan, and we're confident that we have at least another 25 years to go. So I mean, this is not the priority, but this would be an opportunity to extend the ice season as well, if we could insulate the structure. Right now it's not insulated, but we would have an opportunity to extend the ice season. There's an evaluation coming up with Guillaume and his team to assess the accessibility and mobility. So, we're kind of inspecting the building to see what kind of improvements we could make. So we'll go get their feedback to see what we could do at this center if we go ahead with this project. And we did this for the country YQM, and we had good feedback. And so if we work with that group, Access New-Brunswick, then or Accessibility New-Brunswick rather, that should help us. All right, so just to compare both options, so we'd go from 2.5 million to 7.5 million. The subsidy from the GMF would be 0.5 million, and in option two, it would be 1.5 million. The RDC contribution is currently at 0.5 million, but we could possibly go get more money for that. The FCM loan would go from 1.5 million to 4.5 million. I mentioned that earlier. And we have things in the project that were supposed to be in the building renovation, part of the building renovation, and that would be done. But anyway, so this is just a comparison of both options. So the city's administration is recommending option two, this project to modernize the arena and bring it up to current standards while extending its lifespan.
Un peu d'échéancier. Pourquoi qu'on est là ce soir?
And here's the timeline. This is why we're here tonight. So if we want this project to be completed by next summer, we have a schedule. We'll have to go issue a call for tenders. We would come back to council on the 23rd with a formal resolution with a bit more information. And then we would ask City Council to decide whether or not we can proceed. And then at that point, we'd initiate a call for tenders. And then on November 25, the idea is to have a contract for this work to be carried out next summer. In terms of the delivery of materials, that's the critical period to get the material available in April to start the work and to be able to start the renovation. These are the dates that we're looking at. So we're talking with Denis' team. We're in talks with the Denis team, rather. And if we go ahead with this work, we think that by planning this work out, instead of just reacting every time there is I think that to plan it is better to do it than in a piecemeal fashion and just react to issues that arise. We think it's better to plan ahead of time and to go forward with this project for 2025. So, all right, if you have any questions or comments that we will try to answer.
Monsieur Lantaigne.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Questions, Mr. Lantaigne. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for this presentation, which was very detailed. The way I think that it's a good project is if you look at the $2 million subsidy and you have a return on investment of 5 years, about 5 years, if we talk about energy savings. So the return on the investment over 5 years is excellent. And my question, well, you already mentioned this. We already have a lack of ice time. The figure skaters, minor hockey, recreational skaters, I understand that we can't have a project like this without closing the arena for all those months. Are there any solutions that have been identified? Are the hours going to be reduced if there's fewer hours for skating, amateur hockey? Everyone is going to share. We accommodate each other for tournaments and championships. We're going to do that too. Yes, it's a disturbance. I'm the first one to say so. It's going to bother the groups, but it's a necessary evil with the services reservations. There's a plan for next year. We had a plan for this year, but we didn't have any guaranteed funding, so we had to put it off. Did you look to see if in 2025 there were major championships, national championships like we've had in the past that might affect this? Everything is planned over time to make sure that when there's a tournament in the first week of April, so the others can go ahead, but we can't take any others. It's a good project. You can make an omelet without breaking some eggs. Thank you. Councillor Le Boutillier.
Merci. Vous m'entendez bien?
Yes, can you hear me? Yes, very well. Great. I had two questions. One is, during the last Ringuette Championship, AGL wasn't standardized, and be it skating or Ringuette or hockey, is this going to put us in compliance because you're not making the space of the arena bigger? You're right, Councillor Le Boutillier, the ice surface will not be any bigger than what we have at the current time. My other question is, and I don't know if this has been looked at, is, I don't know the answer to this, but if we're going to put $7.5 million into an arena where we don't have a standard size,
glaces qui sont pas
And we
standards.
already have 2 ice surfaces that aren't standard, and to the standards. And also, we know that we have a challenge with regard to internal usage. Maybe there's another solution for AJL, but the construction cost for a new surface in AJL, we had done this before doing a duplex. Did we also look at this alternative? And what would be the cost of adding an additional surface, a complete, standardized, compliant services? Have you looked at that, Mr. Book? Are we talking about adding a third ice surface? We had looked at that. It's fairly difficult behind. We didn't have enough land. The only place we had land that we could attach, we've just built a pickleball court. On the other side, it would be difficult. And basically, it would be a standalone building where we could have built along the pathway where there's going to be a upcoming investment. If I look at what's happening everywhere else, and I don't have the figures in front of me, but what's happening elsewhere is that the cost of a standalone ice surface is $12 to $15 million. It's difficult to give you a true figure without knowing. When we started the Uniplex, we were certainly not at the amount that it cost us at the outset. This project also went in a different direction. There were many additions to the project, which gave us the project that we have today. It cost $34 million for 2 ice surfaces and all the other services that we offer there. But a new skating rink on its own, I don't have a firm answer, but when I look at what's happened elsewhere and what's going on, I haven't really heard the figures from those amounts. But, you know, it also depends on what you want to build. In our master plan for recreation, we're talking about a 5th ice surface in Dieppe. It's over a 10-year plan. It's not in year 2 of the plan, but we see the usage, and maybe Denis could tell you a little bit more about that. Our role for the service is asset management. So I have a 53-year-old asset that I'm trying to look after. If it were not in good shape, if we could not get another 25, 30 years out of that facility, I wouldn't be here in front of you having a discussion like we've had for other buildings in the past, unfortunately. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's my contribution. Yes, it somewhat answers. So it's going to be double the 7.5. So looking at $15, $16 million. But when we make decisions such as this one, I think at the end of it all, it would have been good to have an approximate analysis of the cost, because there are some good solutions that have been brought forward before the Uniplex. To my memory, there were 3 scenarios that were being put forward with different figures attached to them. So that's simply what I wanted to add. You are clearly the experts in this field, and we had to go to our neighbors. You know, it wasn't a huge championship, but we were limited. We want to focus on sport tourism, but among the sports that we support in Canada, we're not qualified for that. So I think we you know, it deserves some thought, and maybe we should look at it. So thank you. That's what I wanted to put forward. Thank you. Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Councillor Le Boutillier, because you dealt with a question that I also wanted to ask about this idea of a 5th ice surface and planning to put the emphasis on a 5th surface and then maybe renovate when this 5th surface is in place will have less impact on people. So we're talking about planning. This is the definition of good planning, in my opinion. I think we should look at this opportunity, and I think you're giving us an opportunity to act. And that's how I'm taking it. In the short term, this opportunity seems to be interesting. However, at a cost. The funding invested today means what we get today, what we're putting aside for later, because there are other projects that we're looking at. I'm still waiting for washrooms at Lakeburn, but funding needs to be used elsewhere. But for long-term planning of a fifth ice service, that would allow us to have a fourth service immediately that could be a standard size and a fifth that could be used differently in Saint-Anselme. But this is what came to mind and what I wanted to understand to see how far away a fifth service could be, how long it's going to take to get there, and if what we have today would last as long that it's going to take us to get a fifth ice surface. It's difficult to answer. There's no answer right away, but it's a consideration to add to the discussion, to see what's going to be happening in the coming months. The only thing I could add is that this facility could last for the time that it takes us to put a fifth ice surface in. There are some elements of risk in the building, and that's why we went from 2.5 to 7.5 million in order to manage these risks. That the surface next fall, maybe we won't be able to put ice in. Is that a major risk? Well, it's a risk. Even an equipment room that's not up to code is a risk. The stands, the seating area, the boards, it's a risk because they're not standard. So that's the issues that we were looking at to say, look, we went from 2.5 to 7.5 million. Can we manage these risks and plan them all? Can they last, before we or get into planning for a fifth ice surface? Is it going to take 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Can we get there with the current building? Sure, it's possible. But having said that, thank you. Councillor Mélenchon. Well, to come back to the question, for those who live through the Uniplex Center, I think the arena project, I think this is the only contributor to the center. So if we have $50 million to contribute to a fifth center, we can control that. But if we're looking for other partners, different government levels, it took us 7 years to confirm the financing for that Uniplex. So we have to align levels of government. That takes some time. And it's another element in the planning for a fifth ice service, which could be pushed back. But if we had $50 million and it was a priority, and that's where the financing goes, well, that's another factor that we have to take into consideration for the master plan. A new ice surface in the next 10 years is part of the plan. But right now, we don't have a new ice surface forecast in the budget over the next 5 years. So that's another factor that we have to take into consideration.
Madame Jeannet.
Councillor Jeannet, Your Worship, it's just a question for information. I'm not sure that I understood this correctly. So the building is aged, and when you talk about heat recovery, are you talking about insulating the whole building again? That's what I didn't quite understand. It's energy savings that we're looking with solar panels, for example. Solar panels help us save energy. That's part of the initial project. But the question of refrigeration and heat recovery with the refrigeration system, also there are energy savings there. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add. What was the whole machinery issue for me? But with regard to insulation, has the insulation been inspected for this building? When we talk about the having the foundation of energy efficient building, if the heat is escaping and the building envelope, I don't know, Remy, if you want to answer that part of the question. The way the arena works in the energy calculation is the more energy is taken from the house to be sent outside than what's necessary for a building. So we're taking all the energy to make the ice, and we added heat from the ice, and there's enough to heat the whole building. So we can heat all the spaces and heat the water as well. So there's no energy loss, despite the fact that the outside walls were changed about 10 years ago. So there's better insulation than there was at the time of it being built. But energy-wise, okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Godet. Your Worship, with regard to question, Marc Melançon hardly answered one of them. We want a zero net. So there's no financing there, or less or more? You said it was going to take 5 to 7 years. But did we take the example of when we built the Uniplex? It's an exercise that we're going to have to do to see if there's any potential contribution by the federal government. We haven't done this exercise, so we have to look at it again to see if it's a priority. Because but we went from 33% to 40% energy savings. If there's a difference, what I was wondering for the whole conditioning system that you want to, the dehumidification, I know it's for the summer, but we're going to be using energy for air conditioning. How is it? How are we going to explain that this is going to happen? For air conditioning, we have a unit that's used for dehumidifying on the Olympic side for the whole building. Because if we don't use it, it's going to be too humid in the building and not effective, because it's really made for that. Because it requires a lot of energy, it can be more effective than what we've done. We're saving energy at the building. It's a unit that uses 200 kilowatts. So it uses a lot of energy to take out the humidity. And we've done seasons without doing it. And it was so humid in the building, we were having problems. And when they went to play ball hockey, they started to slide. So we had to rent a temporary machine, and the electric bill went down. So you're using a dehumidifier year-round? Yes, that's right. And it's more effective. It's what's being put forward by the consultants too. And it wouldn't cost any more? That's right. Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, merci. Madame Godbout, vous avez accroché. Okay, s'il n'y a pas d'autres questions.
If there are no further questions, thank you. Oh, question or comment from staff? Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Maybe to come back to Councillor Lantang's comment about return on investment. I think you were making reference to $1 million that the city is going to put in, but the 4.5 million is still a cost to the city. It's a cost. I just wanted to ensure that that was clear, because you're talking about return on investment over 5 years. Well, I was taking the 7.5 million with $2 million worth of subsidy. So it's about $5 million, $5.5 million. And if there are savings of $112,000 per year for energy savings, multiply that by 5, and that's your return on the investment. It's 500,000. Right. I just. Oh, not strong in math. Is that why you're in sales? Look, I do this kind of exercise every day. All I could see was the 5 million. Okay. A little humility? Maybe two quick comments. The lack of ice has been mentioned. You know, from Monday to Friday, we don't have enough ice time from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock. On evenings and weekends, there is still time from 7 to 4. There are 2 ice services, and we have a full ice service, almost 2 that are free. There is time, but there's no prime time, but there is other time. So when you need a 5th ice service, sure, we could use a 5th ice service. But, we, with the whole team, trying to analyze all the needs and the recreation master plan, very soon in the next coming weeks, we're going to be putting this analysis in front of you. We're going through this internally right now. The recreation master plan has a 5th arena, but there are all kinds of other elements that are required. If you're talking about services in Lakebird, gymnasiums, we have to analyze this and say, where's our priority? There are too many components in the plan with the resources that we have. So we have to be very strategic. I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but I just want you to know that we're putting things forward that are going to be very strategic. And at the end of it all, you are going to decide. But for the 5th ice service, I would say that there are other needs currently, but at the end of the line, you're deciding. To give you some perspective, we're doing the analysis, and I want to thank Raymond and his team who worked very, very hard for 6 months, 8 months on their presentation to bring something forward with the figures. A great deal of work was done, and I think we're at version 16 or 17, 15, whatever. So what we're bringing to you today is as best we can. We were waiting for news from the FCM, so I really thank the team for doing great work. I appreciate your questions because some of the thoughts that came forward this evening are going to bring us to some more thoughts. So that's what I have by way of comment. Thank you. I don't know if we can take this out of. Okay, so thank you. Clearly, there are all kinds of people and communities who would like to have the problems that we have, but at the same time, we have to think further ahead, as has been underlined previously by Luc, the whole issue of ice usage during the day. We're quite spoiled. Our young people are quite spoiled. But when we tell them, there's another thing, because when the parents say, well, we have the right to that. We have the right to an ice service at the times that we want. Okay, Your Worship. So where are we heading with this? We're going to bring that file to you next week on the 23rd for your direction. So if you have major concerns, this is the time to share them. It's an opportunity in one way that we can do the renovations rather than risking a surprise and taking over a year. Yes, Councillor Le Boutillier says it doesn't answer the needs for major events, but we're here to answer the community needs. So all this has brought us to think about this. So to tell you that we're coming back on the 23rd to get some direction, to say if you tell us if you want us to go ahead or not proceed. Thank you. That puts an end to the discussion for the time being. And now, if you want to have a separate discussion, go ahead. Do you want us to continue our research? If we come back to council with a directive and we head off in a different direction, I just want to be sure that we're all aligned. Councillor Godbout, yes, go ahead. Point of clarification. For next week, we saw the material with regard to financial impact on the budget. What other projects are involved? Those are all the things that I want to see, that I presume I'm going to see next week. That's why I said that I wasn't concerned, that I will be having access to this information next week. The idea that we have to borrow money and at what rate, so in order to get a subsidy, we have to borrow money. I find that weird. I've rarely seen this in other programs, but okay. Previously, we had a preferential rate, but now the province is adapted. So this has been around for several years now, but this is in place. It's just weird as a incentive. Okay, those are the issues. And sometimes I think you look at these projects, and we mentioned it this evening, what the long-term impact is. I don't think we have the master plan and the rest of it. We don't have the benefit of that next week when we have those discussions, but I think we'll have it indirectly with that. And I think it's going to be necessary for our discussion about priorities. That's what I wanted to add. Anyway, that was my concern. Okay, thank you. The next presentation are the financial results. Always an exciting presentation to hear Mr. Thériault give us an overview of where we're at. Good evening, councillors. It'll be fairly brief today. It repeats some of the information that I gave you until the end of March. About the same things are happening, but somewhat amplified because we're at 7 months into the year rather than 3 months into the year. So it'll be fairly short, but we will have time to discuss if you have any questions. So let's look at the operating budget, and I'll draw your attention to the last column on the right. So we have a surplus of about $1 million with regard to expenditures, about 2 million. So $3 million of surplus until the end of July. So with the income revenues we should received, or what we have actually received or spent, you can see an analysis of revenues and expenditures. With regard to revenue, you can see that property tax comes out equal, finance New-Brunswick about the same. So it's a third line where you have the other revenues. When you talk about other, we're talking about building permits in this case, which is much higher than what we had anticipated. Last year in this year, 2024, we had increased our budget of 500,000 to 750,000. And even having done this, we're already today at $1.1 million in building permits compared to a budget of 500,000. So we have a surplus of 600,000 already accumulated there. The other surpluses with regard to other revenues, we're talking about investment interest. The interest rates have remained fairly high. They've changed a little bit, but what's also happening is that the way the municipality works, we receive this money every month from the government, but our big expenditure is always at the end of the year when we pay back our loans. So we accumulate all this money, and at the end of the year, we spend it. So we have changed from accumulating interest on this money. That's one of the better advantages. So there's 130,000 there. Also, we're talking about subsidies. We have $40,000 that we hadn't budgeted for. That's when we annexed the 2 other areas. The province reimbursed some expenses that we put out of that amount. So these are small slices. And the other surplus, we had just talked about the arena. The budget was about 1.6 million for the year. To date, the budget is about, so we have a small surplus there because of arena rentals. So this summarizes the surpluses with regard to revenues, but the most important part is the construction permits. And next year, in the 2025 budget, I will be moving from 750 to 1 million for the budget. So there'll be a little bit more. So there'll be fewer fluctuations and less of a surplus next year. With regard to expenditures, there's no surprise. Line number 1, salaries, that has the biggest surplus, 1.33 million. I had a quick meeting with the Human Resources Director, and we have about 20 positions that are not yet filled. So this creates a great surplus there. There could be positions vacant since the beginning of the year, positions for 2024, or simply people who have left and who have not yet been replaced. So these positions are vacant. Also, with regard to short-term, long-term absences, so their salaries aren't in the payroll, and this registers as a surplus until the person comes back to work at the office. There's the TSNB at the beginning of the year, before the budgets came out. We already tried to budget the amount to pay for city salaries. It was 2.95, and for the last 3 years, have we done better or less better? So we estimated 3.6, we're at 2.94, and we had a 2.4, so we went down there. So there was a surplus of 130,000 there. So that summarizes, with regard to salaries, what the surpluses are. Once again, for next year, it's my intention to, we get used to this. And so the new positions that are going to be accepted, and if they are accepted, they're not going to start in January. They'll be a little later on in the year. And so to be a little more realistic in this way, all new positions, they won't all be starting in January in our offices. We're going to be spacing them out throughout the year to be a little bit more realistic. With regard to external commissions, there's 150,000. This amount, according to the analysis, is for Kodiak Transpo. But we have much more income that we had than we had thought. It's really expenses of Kodiak Transpo. We have only written in the net expenditure. I would say that 1.6 million. But we're already at this 400 million. So between now and the end of the year, we should be able to cover that. It's $150,000 in surplus that we have up until the end of July. So things are going well there.
En dernier lieu, c'est les autres dépenses.
And then finally, the other expenses, we see $440,000 for other expenditures, and that's snow removal. The first 3 months of the year, we didn't have snow or ice, and that didn't change during the summer. So that's the same amount that I was talking about before, the last time I appeared before you. So that is basically what's happening on the operational side of things. Now, for water and waste, we have got a $260,000 surplus. So 200,000 for revenue and on 60,000 on the expenditure side. So in detail, we have a much higher number of residents than what we had estimated. I had estimated about 9,000 residents and 4,000 businesses, but we've got about 500 more residents more. So we went, so the number is higher. So that gives us $160,000 surplus on the rate side. In terms of revenue, as I just explained, these are mostly from interest from investments. In terms of expenditures now, and this is going to be a bit repetitive. On the salary line, we see a surplus of $210,000, and that's the same thing. It's for the same reason as what I explained for the previous slide. For external commissions, or for operations and maintenance, we see a deficit of $140,000, and we're just talking about one item.
Qui continue de s'éterniser au niveau de l'OLIGO. Et puis, nos frais légaux, comme
So, and that's the court case, that expense is from the court case that is ongoing. So we're in a $140,000 deficit.
ceci, vraiment,
So that is basically what I had to say. Any questions from councillors?
Tout va très bien.
All right, excellent. Everything is fine.
Merci pour la présentation.
Thank you for the presentation. So there's still no questions?
Présentation du rapport.
All right, well, item 7 then, presentation, progress report, strategic planning. Oh, I need some help, Stéphane. How do I how do I go get my presentation? I never get used to this.
Alors, bonjour, Monsieur le Maire.
All right, Your Worship, councillors. So I'm happy to give you a progress report on the 2020-2024 strategic planning exercise.
Excusez-moi.
Et voilà.
Alors, je vais essayer de ne pas nous faire veiller
So,
trop tard, mais si
I
vous
don't
avez-
want to keep you too late, but if you do have questions, don't hesitate. You can ask them during the presentation. So our mission is to shine as an inclusive and modern Francophone city that is proud of its Acadian roots and provides first-rate services and infrastructure in harmony with the environment. Our vision is to be a welcoming, dynamic, and ecologically responsible city, and our values are integrity, inclusion, and innovation. Now, as you know, in our strategic plan for 2020-2024, we had identified 6 challenges and 22 strategies. So the first challenge was community and cultural development. The second one, green and sustainable city. 3, economic development and prosperity. 4, spatial planning or land planning rather, and quality infrastructure. 5, citizen participation, and 6, quality governance and municipal management. And the last time that I presented to you, I presented this collaborative dashboard that we created that involves all city departments. So I just wanted to remind you that all of the action plans from all departments are in a single file, and we follow up on them. And what's new for 2024, because the last time we met, you had asked, if we could we have a weighting for each project, or or a way to mark the process. I wasn't able to find one, but I did give a weighting for a 2-year project. So we won't be looking at that specific project, but we'll be looking at what we had expected to achieve this year. So we only monitor or follow up on the implementation of our action plan. So what we did in 2024. For the first issue, which is community and cultural development, we had 4 different strategies, and we achieved those to about 59%. For the first strategy, which was to develop and promote the vitality of the Francophone community and Acadian pride, we are at 64% completion. We did a study of the state of the Francophone community in Dieppe. We did promotion of Acadian and Francophone activities. We did summer programming that we developed with Francophone partners. We organized the August 15th celebrations, which I think was a success. And then we had the Francophonie Week. The second strategy was to enhance inclusion in cultural and recreational programming and activities. And for that, we achieved 79% completion. We revised the policy L16, which was the events grant program, and we did community programming, which promoted multiculturalism, inclusion, and diversity. And what remains to be done is work with regard to fire prevention with newcomers. The third strategy was to enhance citizen sense of belonging and commitment. We've got 63% of that action plan that has been achieved. So a few examples of things that we did were hosting a citizenship ceremony for the second year. We highlighted different cultures in our community. We prepared intervention plans for buildings housing clients identified as having special needs. And we assessed fire prevention needs in immigrant communities. The fourth strategy was to maximize the use of public and community spaces and facilities. We achieved 28% of the measures that were planned. So there were no actions completed to date. There are things that are underway, like facilitating access to school gymnasiums. We were able to go and get 200 hours per week, updating exterior signage, evaluating the use of our public infrastructure, reviewing the municipal facility rates, ensuring implementation of the recreation master plan, and revising procedure L8. Those are all things that are underway, but that haven't been completed yet. Now, in terms of the second issue, development of a green and sustainable city, 74% of our actions have been completed to date. So the first strategy was to update and implement the sustainable development strategy. So we revised bylaw C35 on vegetative growth. And we distributed over 3,000 new trees in Dieppe. So 3,000 seedlings rather, and 162 mature trees. Now, and if I add to that to last year, we've distributed over 13,000 seedlings and 212 mature trees. And more than 140 were planted on private land. So we've got more than 13,200, we planted more than 13,200 trees last year, which is not written on this slide, but that's part of our plan, our greenhouse gas reduction plan. The second strategy was to protect our green spaces and continue to develop parks and trails that enhance Dieppe's nature and ecological diversity. 75% of our actions were achieved. There was the plaster plan for parks and green spaces. I think that's underway. When will that be done? Oh, okay. Well, we've received the latest version. Then we created preservation areas, and we're continuing the Dieppe to Shadiac Coastal Trail project. We created preservation areas. We officialized rights of way, and so we're working on that project. The third strategy was to enhance our natural features, such as waterways and marshes. Now, we didn't include any actions in the 2024 plan, but that doesn't mean that we didn't work on this. So in 2024, what we did is we installed a milkweed garden to provide a breeding and feeding ground for the monarch butterfly. So, and this is a sculpture that we have there. We restored nearly 10,000 square meters of grassy areas in we created a rain garden of 250 square meters at Rotary Saint-Anselme Park, and it's the biggest the Pitts-Kodiak Watershed Alliance has ever done. And then there were 15 exhibitors on plants that distributed native and other plant seeds. We conducted nature walks during Winter Magic. We provided information on the Acadian forest. We held nature workshops in May with École Lamiro, and we raised awareness of the importance of the urban forest and participatory tree inventory.
On a fait aussi de la sensibilisation.
We also so raised awareness of the importance of the urban forest and took a participatory tree inventory with the community. So those are examples of what we did under that strategy. Fourth strategy was to improve and promote various modes of transportation and travel. So 77% is what we've achieved. We completed the analysis of the transportation on demand transit pilot project, rather. We purchased new buses. We prioritized active transportation capital projects. And we're continuing to work on electrifying the municipal fleet, and we've improved our public transit service. For the third issue, which was economic development and prosperity, we've achieved 80% of our action plan. The first strategy was to continue to densify the downtown area and develop a cultural life. So we're at 79%. We're continuing the downtown densification plan. We revised policy EXPD1 with financial incentives for real estate densification of the downtown core. And we maintained a lively cultural life at Place 1604. The second strategy was to develop an environment conducive to business development through a culture of innovation and creativity. So 100% of our action plan was achieved. And it was through Expansion Dieppe Expansion Dieppe that we offer professional service to entrepreneurs. So there are 13 new companies in Dieppe that we welcomed in 2024. Expansion Dieppe held its 22nd annual expansion, which celebrates entrepreneurship in Dieppe, and they continue networking within the region. The third strategy was to make Dieppe a destination for tourists. So 67% is what we've achieved in 2024. We continued our partnership with Destination Moncton Dieppe. We developed a strategy for attracting and hosting sporting, cultural, and other events. We presented major events such as YQM, the August 15th celebrations, and Fusion. And we have a collaboration going with Expansion Dieppe in the tourism sector. And I think we had 12 to or $14,000 or 14,000 people who attended the August 15th celebration. And so you can see some of the activities that we held. I talked about YKM, I talked about August 15th, but then there was the ringette tournament as well, and hockey Dieppe Memram Cook. There was the Canada Cup mountain bike event as well. And there was a lot of people, like at the ringette, that drew in a lot of people to Dieppe. The fourth strategy was to become the destination of choice for Francophone immigration to Atlantic Canada. 76% is what we've achieved so far. We applied to becoming a welcoming Francophone community. We are actively present in regional initiatives related to Francophone immigration. We were present at the Young Ambassadors Forum of the Francophonie that was organized by the Centre de la Francophonie des Amériques, and we developed communications tools to welcome newcomers. And we also meet groups and associations on a regular basis in this sphere. For the fourth challenge was land planning and quality infrastructure. So the first strategy was to encourage the development of service land within the urban perimeter. So working with Expansion Dieppe, we're continuing to densify the downtown core, so in the Gauvin block in particular. The work is not over yet, and I put it down here, but I put this in gray, the next 2 points. We're working on them. So implementing the housing strategy and action plan, and developing an urban growth strategy. So those two are being worked on. The second strategy is to maintain existing infrastructure to recognize standards. 52% is what we've achieved so far. We demolished the Dover Center. We redid the roof parapet of the Aquatic and Sports Center. We added a generator to the Uniplex. We completed the signage project at pedestrian crossings and pathway intersections. And we rebuilt, repaired, and did preventive maintenance on 1 kilometer of streets. Or sorry, rebuilt and repaired 1.4 kilometers and did preventive maintenance on 1 kilometer of streets. The third strategy was to stimulate the development of the area around well-identified poles, so the downtown area, business park, and industrial park. We initiated the public market project. And then the rest are things that we did with the Expansion Dieppe, so securing the land of sale owned by, or the sale of land owned by, supporting the sale of private land and the leasing of private commercial space, and Expansion Dieppe updated its master plan for business and for the business and technology park. The fourth strategy, improve and optimize existing infrastructure and add new infrastructure to meet the municipality's future needs. 51% is what we've achieved. So we did 7 out of 11 capital projects that have been identified. We made improvements to the Musical site. We installed sanitary services in Dover Park. We upgraded water meters. We added a generator at a sewer lift station. We planned phase 1 of the Boulevard Dieppe, or Dieppe Boulevard extension. We also analyzed the impact of raising chickens in an urban environment. We updated policy Z2 on antenna system siting. We worked on the project that was presented earlier this evening, which is phase 2 of the Arthur J. Leblanc Center. So We did infrastructure design and specifications and standards, and we prepared a capital projects plan for 2025 to 2029. The fifth challenge was quality citizen participation. That's been completed to 63%. So the first strategy was to increase citizen participation in the municipal decision-making process. We were at 64% achievement. Public consultations and surveys for the strategic planning, parks and green spaces, Winter Magic, Rotary Saint-Anselme Park, and we've held 3 public hearings to date. The second strategy, continue to diversify the tools used to communicate with the public. We're at 61% completion. We developed information tools, so like an explanatory guide to the urban planning process, an explanatory guide to water main breaks, and we simplified public sector accounting rules, or we provided a simplified explanation of them. We improved the information available on capital projects, and we worked on implementing a citizen alert system, as we discussed earlier this evening. The communications department also worked on 54 speeches and 59 press releases. We enhanced our social media presence. So we maintain. So we've increased the number of subscribers. So 10.6.8% of our Facebook subscribers. So 2,002 new subscribers. For Instagram, 473 new followers, so an increase of 11.6%. And for Twitter, or X rather, 165 new followers, so 1.72% increase. The sixth issue or challenge was quality governance and municipal manage. So the first strategy was to continue to improve the transparency of municipal governance, 58% completion. We updated bylaw A4. We followed up on action plans like the one that I'm doing, or like what I'm doing today with the 2020-2024 strategic plan. We presented the interim financial report to council. That's what Stéphane did earlier this evening. And we did our strategic planning for 2025-2029. The second strategy was to provide constant attention and support to our human resources, which are the municipality's most important asset. So 74% completion rate. We did a lot of staff awareness raising activities with regard to diversity and immersion. We increased the expertise of the Environment Department. We showcased our employees and their work, and we did a non-union job evaluation and market analysis. We also analyzed our HR needs for the HR needs of internal departments. We enhanced the HR, engineering, and fire investigator team. We added an investigator, for example, for the fire department. And we implemented the new structure in the services department, IT, planning and development, and bylaw enforcement. The third strategy was to continue our efforts to achieve sound financial management at all levels of our organization, so 59% completion. So as was asked of us, all departments revised their basic budgets. We improved the budgeting process, and we reviewed our insurance coverage for expensive medication. And we're currently working on reviewing the financial plan. We also revised policy A10, which is the checks returned by the bank. We adopted bylaw S3, which was which dealt with fire protection services. And we renewed the fire department collective agreement. The fourth strategy was to continuous improvement of work methods and processes. So in cybersecurity, we now have multi-factor authentication for those people who connect remotely. We documented the process and drafted the procedure for the Urban Planning Advisory Committee, or the PAC committee rather. We updated the Municipal Emergency Measures Plan, and we improved the lane marking program. We provided training So we did training in inclusive rating, we applied document management rules to the HR department, and we improved billing for water and sewer accounts. And we continued we reviewed the continuous improvement position and service, and we added the notion of change management to continuous improvement, and we're planning to to launch a competition for the director position soon. Any questions?
Question de la part des membres du Conseil, Madame Turgeon-Roy.
Questions by council members? Councillor Turgeon, thank you, Your Worship. My question, and maybe Luc can even answer this with regard to improving different transportation methods. Last week, I got a question from a resident who already attended a presentation from Nova Scotia. He didn't quite remember about car sharing or ride sharing. There's a system in a community in Nova Scotia. Is this something that we're planning for the future, or did we simply reject that idea? I think he was referring to a car share, Halifax car share, and there was also a group, a Francophone group, which has a car share called Communauto. The last time I heard anything about this, someone in Moncton or Kodiak Transpo who was working on it, somebody, Jeremy, was in contact with those people. But as far as I know, at the current time, there's not much happening or moving on that project. One of the challenges was financing the infrastructure. And so we might be interested, because a study was underway to see if the community was interested. So I could check with Jeremy and see if anything's new, but I hadn't heard anything recently about it. You know, he was mentioning the advantage for the elderly who don't always want to take buses. It might be a way for them to move around. Thank you. So it's not dead, no, but I don't have any other news about it.
Mais le partage de véhicules, c'est
But sharing the vehicles or ride share or car share, sometimes things have been done in the past and people weren't ready for it. You know, maybe it wasn't a consideration for the community. You know, the community has changed a lot in the last 15, 20 years. So maybe there's things that we could look at. Maybe there's some, to see if we can some traction. Maybe for this point, sometimes it comes with a variety, many options. You know, ride share or car sharing works if you've got good transportation. Maybe you need, if you go to Shediac or something, where you can't take a bus, or you have shopping to do and you really need to get somewhere in particular. So these methods work when it's part of a whole. And maybe this is the idea you have to have, you know, while we're working on busing, we can also work on some of these other solutions. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Godbout. Thank you. It's always impressive to see a report of all the work that's been accomplished and what items are part of the different strategies. So thank you for that. A question I had is whether these items you're looking at to evaluate the percentage where we're at, are these set in time or something that's going to evolve? If new things make sense to adjust, or you thought you were going to finish it, but something happened at the last minute in the community, then you have to. Are there considerations there? Are you giving us ourselves an objective at the beginning of the year, and things are assessed over the course of the year? At the beginning of the year, we make up a plan. Every sector, every branch does their planning, and they say if there's a direct link to strategic planning. It's not all of it, because they do many more things than this. We did an exercise last December where everyone shared their work plan for 23-24, and I realized that it wasn't all included. And the people have a tendency to plan at 120%. So we try, and what is in there is, you know, if there's a link with strategic planning. And that's why I get to the end of the year and I say, well, we've realized only 50% of our objectives, and maybe the other part, the other component that wasn't in there, but was in the work plan, took more room, or all kinds of things happened in the community. And, you know, we detoured off of it and couldn't get there. I don't know if that answers your question. Yes, I just wanted to know if there was some room for flexibility. And I think you're confirming what I wanted to hear, and that it still exists. And so once again, thank you. It's very impressive to see the amount of work that we've accomplished at this point in the year. You know, it's impossible to tell you everything that's been done. Just the slide where I said we have nothing in our action plan that deals with this strategy, but, you know, I have 3 pages of action that I could add in that deck. Thank you. Councillor Lantagne. Thank you, Your Worship. With regard to community cultural development on page 109, you mentioned a moment ago that it related to the Recreation Master Plan. You know, we've been talking about it for a while now, and I'm making the link here, the project that has been put forward for AJL. You know, we're going to be asked to make a decision, and so if we had the Recreation Master Plan, it would make things easier with regard to public infrastructure. So it's a tool which is indispensable to allow us to think about these things and make decisions about projects like AJL. Is the master plan coming at any time soon? That's my question about your slide.
So la réponse à la question, c'est oui. Donc,
The answer to the question is yes. There's a presentation that would normally be done during the budget process when we put our budget in. So when we have a recreation master plan, like other major projects, engineering, etc. So it's within that whole that we would present our plan to you. And where there were discussions underway that precipitated this. And so this is what we're working at right now to see how we're going to bring the file forward to have as much information as possible, and also to give you some various scenarios for decision making.
la décision.
if you're not completely comfortable with the making a decision on the 23rd, there are discussions, that we'll hear from your comments this morning and your comments this evening. And so it would happen at the latest, the budgetary process. And we will be looking at projects that are included in the master plan for recreation and other discussions with regard to the priority that we would give to these projects, as well as the funding associated with them. That's what we're doing. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'll take this opportunity that I have right now to say that after listening to your excellent presentation, what struck me the strongest was the question that we still haven't hired someone for continuous improvement. And for those of you who know me, I'm a big believer in constant improvement. And it seems to me that a lot of files would benefit from having someone who is responsible for various files and sometimes encouraging or pushing our employees to go in that direction so things get moving and things go forward. And yes, another opportunity just went by. Our opportunities exist, and we're trying to get the necessary manpower or labor force to realize our ambitions. Sorry, I hit the microphone. For me, I think we're missing opportunities because of this. It's not a criticism. It's just a thought I wanted to share. That's it. If there's nothing else, we'll wish all of you a good evening. Thank you.